ton of bricks. Doesn't matter weak or strong. Take your time and do your tricks. All I do is sing along. Yeah, I need you around for brighter light and firmer ground. When you believe in me, love is gonna set me free. Used to be anonymous. Now the world has seen your face. Living life is dangerous, but there's a map for every maze. Yeah, you can be a bird, tell the stories you have heard, and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
Good evening, all of my wonderful listeners. This is Andi Cook with Empowered to Speak Radio, and I am coming to you tonight with Asa Marie Thompson and Tiffany Gooch, who are both joining me. They are members of my Sheroes Alliance, amazing, wonderful people. And let me go ahead and get them unmuted so they can join us. I'll introduce Tiffany. Tiffany and I went to high school together at Burleson High School, graduated way back in 98. So, and we reconnected through Facebook. And Tiffany has just been a lifelong support in my life. And so I'm super excited to partner with her through Sheroes. Are you there, Tiffany?
Can you hear?
I can kind of hear you. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you tonight?
I am good. Have y'all been hearing me the whole time?
I have not. You've been muted. And Asa Marie Thompson is here. Are you there, Asa? Are you there?
I am here. I muted myself and forgot to take the mute off.
I understand. And Asa and I met through the Sheroes conference. Asa is a clarity coach and a speaker, and she will be running one of our workshops at the Sheroes conference, which I am super excited about. appreciate you ladies being here. All right. So we're going to kick it off with I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, and I want you to be able to interact with each other, as well as I have some questions I wanted to ask you guys, and just to give everybody a background on how we came about with She Rose. I am a lifelong survivor of tragedy and trauma through surviving childhood abuse and surviving failed marriages and infertility, and losing a late-term pregnancy. I was 20 weeks pregnant when I lost my son, Caden. And so through all of that and chronic illness battles, I learned that it is innately within us to learn to survive, and wanted to take my stories of survival and empower other people to express their own stories of survival. So Empowered to Speak, It's Time to Tell Your Story, came about as a way to give a platform to people who want to share their own stories of what they've been through. I have a particular desire to help women who haven't always had a voice in their life to tell their story. And I know, Tiffany, you have a very powerful story of your own. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So tell a little bit about what brought you to She Rose, and kind of the powerful story that you have.
Well, let's see. I've overcome quite a bit. Started about 5 years ago after I got divorced. I turned to drugs as a way to deal with everything, and was just fed up, and eventually lost my home and became homeless, and my little girl had to live with her dad, and during that journey of being homeless, an amazing miracle happened, and I got pregnant. And it would be at that moment that everything would kind of click, and I chose to go with adoption, because I didn't want to bring a child into where I was at that moment into my life. But it wasn't her fault, so I chose to go, with adoption rather than abortion. And the amazing miracle that came from that is Hadley and her wonderful mother and father, and the relationship that's grown from that. And
Absolutely.
Now that I've overcome all that and I'm stable and sober over 2 years now, I want to share my journey with other women to give hope to the hopeless.
Absolutely. I love that.
I did it all as a grown adult. I did things that teenagers would do to get in trouble,
Right.
And here I was doing it as 35 years old. And
Right.
It was time, to something happened inside of me to change. And I've changed my mind, and I've changed my direction.
Absolutely.
Life is miraculous, and it's wonderful, and I want to share it with everybody because it just brings hope.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that you do better than anybody I've ever been around, is that you share and radiate light everywhere you go. And it doesn't matter, when you're having a bad day, very few people are going to know about it. And you continue to radiate light. And I love that about you. It's definitely one of your gifts.
Oh, thank you so much.
I want to switch over for just a minute with Asa. And Asa, I'm going to ask you the same question. Tell a little bit about your story that led you to She Rose, that led you to kind of discover your message.
Well, my story goes all the way back from my childhood. I tell people that I've learned along the way how to maneuver chaos. I'm not afraid of chaos anymore, because it almost feels like I was born from chaos. My whole childhood was chaotic. My teenage years were extremely chaotic. My 20s were chaotic. And it wasn't until I got all the way up to that magical age of 27 when everything started crumbling around me. And I was forced to make very difficult decisions as to whether or not I was going to start making something of myself, meaning whether or not I was going to start taking charge of the life that I was given. Because prior to that, it just always seemed like I was a victim of my circumstances. You know, as a child, I can't control what my parents do. I can't control what school they put me in. I can't control what the people in school do. I just could not control my environment. But by the time I turned 27, I was a mother of a toddler, found out that I was pregnant. Immediately after that, my significant other left our home. I was forced to go into shelter because I didn't have a way of taking care of us if I didn't do that.
Right.
And just being faced with that reality and having to make decisions about who am I going to be moving forward.
Sure.
And putting those thoughts and those prayers out into the universe and making those conscious decisions to think differently, act differently, and to see the world differently led me here. So
Absolutely.
Here I am 10 years later. And that's the one thing they always told us when we were in the shelter, that, you know, it takes 10 years for you to recover from a situation like that, from a crisis like that. And 10 years from now, if you do what you're supposed to do when you're here, 10 years from now, you'll be able to look back at yourself and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. And I'm a living, walking, breathing testimony to that. 10 years later, I can hardly believe, I mean, I don't have everything that I could possibly want in the world, but I can't believe that I'm the person that I am today. And so I've decided to take the lessons that I've learned along the way and share it with others so that they don't have to stay in the pit for 10, 20, 30 years before they see the light. You know, if I can share my story so other people don't have to suffer, that's what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think we all three have that in common, where this message of saying, you have the life you create. And I think all three of us are very in tune with that concept and the laws of attraction and changing our center point of attraction. And I think that was my aha moment in my life, when I was literally looking myself in the mirror, because Zig Ziglar said, when you are doing your affirmations, look in the mirror. And he said, look yourself in the eye, you know, take a deep look at your own soul. And I remember just standing there in the mirror, looking at myself saying, you have the job you choose to have, you live in the house you choose to live in, you stay in the relationships that you choose to stay in. And it was so important that I realized that if I was going to change my mind, if I was going to change my circumstances, I had to take full ownership for where I was. And so I think that's something fundamentally that we have in common, all three of us, that feel very strongly about having the life that you created through your own reactions, your own choices as an adult.
Absolutely. That was just it's the aha moment.
Right.
When I realized that, you know, I can't keep getting tossed around by life.
Right.
And having to face consequence after consequence, because that's what life started to feel like after a while. It was just a compilation of consequences. You wake up one morning and I'm just like, how did I get here?
Right.
If I think back to who I was when I was a child, how did I get here? This is not who I meant to be. This is not where I wanted to be. So where along the way did I go wrong for me to end up here? And, you know, just having to ask myself that question and having to ask the universe, okay, so I'm here now. What now? What do I need to do to make sure that I don't stay here and that I don't keep coming back here? Because if I don't change something, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And it's only going to get more and more difficult as I get older.
Absolutely. And there's so much power in what you just said, because it took humility to have that aha moment, to go, hang on, I'm here because I chose this. You had to take full accountability, but in that discovered a whole power that you never knew you had.
Yes, absolutely. That's the grace part is finding that. I remember one day Spirit speaking into my life the idea that amazing grace, because we always sing about amazing grace that saved us, that we were given that amazing grace so that we could have faith that matches that amazing grace. We need to have amazing faith too, because we talk about having faith as tiny as, because we're told, you only need great faith as tiny as a mustard seed.
Right.
And that's fine. That's all you need. But just because that's all you need doesn't mean that's all you have for the rest of your life. You plant that mustard seed and it becomes a mustard tree, and mustard trees are huge.
Right.
And so Spirit put it on my heart that day. I can't even remember what I was doing, and that's just stuck with me for the rest of my life, that amazing grace was given to us so that we can have amazing faith, and that every single obstacle that we encounter in our lives, every circumstance that's been handed to us, every storm that comes our way is given to us to build our faith so that we can have history with our Creator, so that we can look back and say, well, he's taken me through this, he's taken me through that situation, I've overcome this. And so far, my scoreboard for overcoming bad days is I've come through 100%. So this thing isn't going to be the thing that's going to take me out.
I love that.
And now that I'm armed with that knowledge, I can make better choices. I don't have to make choices out of hopelessness or out of fear or out of scarcity, out of lack, because it's amazing how that mindset, how conditioned we are to act out of fear, and how acting out of fear causes us to go down these paths that lead us to these places where we wake up one morning and we're like, how did we get here?
Right.
Yes. I couldn't agree with that statement more. That is beautiful, really, because it's the truth. I mean, even with my own situation, I made every decision that for a while I had was based off of fear. And it led me down a self-induced hell that I don't wish on my worst enemy.
Right. What was your aha moment, Tiffany? A moment that you were like, this could be different.
Oh, I've had several, but my aha moment would be when I like, you can call it God, you can call it intuition, you can call it your your source, your soul. What I heard a voice tell me one day while I was walking the street, and it said, if you leave this life, you will be blessed beyond measure. Just go. Just change your direction. Go a different way. Any way is better than where you are. Go somewhere else.
Wow.
And that's what we did. It took us a couple of months, but that's what I finally listened, and we left. And immediately within the first 3 days of changing our direction and leaving that lifestyle, we were blessed beyond measure with our jobs back, a car. We had a place to live. Within 2 months, we had our own home.
It's amazing.
Like, it's the way that it all happened, and the timetable that it happened with the blessings that started coming went immediately when we changed our point of direction. It's nothing less than miraculous. I mean, it's magical, really.
I agree. And that when I hear that word, I associate it with you. I just do, because I have seen so much in your life just align, and you actually are the first person I heard really talk about changing your center point of attraction. And that was so imperative to my own journey, because I began to understand. I was just learning the laws of attraction in a whole different way. I was pouring, messages into my life from Les Brown and Lisa Nichols. And I started watching The Secret and listening to The Secret and their little conventions that they were doing and conferences. And I was just pouring it into my life when your path and my path crossed. And I learned a lot from you on it, but when you began to talk about changing your center point of attraction, I was like, that makes so much sense to me, about really having that center point that is driving the rest of what is happening in my life. It was like this perfect click.
Yes. I mean, I literally stopped looking at, when we changed our direction, when I say we, me and my husband, when we our point of direction and went a different way, we immediately started looking at blessings, because we could no longer look at chaos. It wasn't around us. And because we started immediately looking and valuing those blessings and those,
absolutely,
it changed our point of direction to where that's all that I see. Like, I know there's bad in the world. I've seen enough of it for a lifetime. I'm done. I only want to look for the good and bring the good out in everybody I see and meet and interact with.
Absolutely. I think that's where the whole point of the conference came about. I was at the end of writing Getting Out of My Own Mind, and the book tells about my own struggle with anxiety and depression and PTSD and self-harm. I mean, it is a tell-all, very transparent book, and I had to really come face to face with the root cause of the person that I was. And I firmly believe that in order to change something about myself, I go back and identify the root, and then I change it at the root so that as it grows back, it's healthy. And so I will go back if there are certain words that really offend me, and I had to go back and figure out what is my connection with that word. A good example would be discipline. I had a very negative connotation of the word discipline, even self-discipline. When I would hear that word, I associated it with abuse, because the discipline at the root of my connotation with that word was very negative. So I had to go back and identify those roots before I could accept where I was and identify, okay, well, here's the root and here's what I did with it, and take full ownership for how I allowed that to grow. So even though I may not have been in control of the root, I had to take ownership of what I allowed to come out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool. I always connect this story with you, and you'll probably hear it 5 million times between the conference. But my favorite moment with you was during the very first conversation we had. And when you were talking and you were sharing your vision, and you remember what you said? You want me to tell the story?
You can go ahead and tell the story. I like when you tell the story.
Okay. So in our conversation, everything that you said, I was like, yes, that's powerful. And, you know, it's all so into it. And then you said that you had really experienced a lot of closure, I believe is how you worded it, in 2017. But you had walked through the door of 2018. And I remember writing that down on my notepad and then going, hang on, wait, that's powerful. Let my brain hold on to that for a second. And as you continued, you said you felt that your calling was to call people to their greatness. And I remember going, oh, there it is. And I got chills. And I said, there's something so powerful about calling people into their greatness. And I remember saying that at the conference, there has to be this moment where you're standing on the other side of a door, calling people by name into their greatness, and they have to walk through that door from where they've been into the greatness that they are being called to create. And I just remember that aha moment, that even to the point now when I walk through a door, I either audibly or just in my mind say, I'm walking through into my greatness. Like, changed the most frequent task in my life. And it resets that point in my mind all day long, because how many times do you walk through a doorway? And so it's just this trigger that changed my life.
And it's one of the things that really brought 2017, that really solidified where I am in my journey. Coming to the end of 2017 for me, it just all felt like everything, all of the lessons that I learned, all of those consequences that I talked about earlier, suddenly life didn't feel like it was just a compilation of consequences anymore. Finally, it's like there was a shift. I woke up one morning and it finally felt like I'm at the place where I'm supposed to be. No matter what happened in the past, no matter how horrible it was, no matter how horrible it felt. Because for a long time, I'd lived my life, but in this very regretful kind of way.
Right.
Which was in a stark contrast to, younger me at, the age of the very wise age of 17, or even at 24. If you asked me if I had any regrets, I would say no. Obviously, no, of course not. Life is to be enjoyed. Why would I regret anything? Fast forward to 32, and I'm like, yeah, I have lots of regrets. look at, just, I can't imagine, I can't believe this is where I am and this is what I've done. And just walking around for so many years with that shame and feeling that despair and feeling lost and feeling like, why am I even trying? It's so hard. Everything's so hard. It's just, and for some reason I woke up at the end of 2017 and everything just kind of felt like I believed in my heart. I wasn't just saying it anymore. I believed in my heart that all those things had brought me here for a reason and that I was finally living my purpose. And I think a lot of that had to do with just finally getting the opportunity to live life on my own terms, just not having to rush to work anymore because I'd been dismissed from my job. So I was able to, even that turned into a blessing because I was able to find a work from home job. So now I'm no longer having to force myself to be in an unnatural schedule. I'm not rushing to work in the morning. I'm not yelling at the kids to get out the door. I'm not rushing into the city and pumping myself full of coffee, dealing with toxic personalities, rushing all the way home, yelling at the kids to get them to finish schoolwork anymore, trying, jump in the bed, rush yourself to sleep so you can rush and wake up in the morning. I wasn't doing that anymore. I was finally living. I'm finally living. I can wake up, I can breathe, relax, send my kids off to school pleasantly, take my time, get my work done, breathe, just live. And I think that had something to do with it because I was finally able to relax into myself.
Right.
And so 2017 came to a close and it really just felt like, wow, I've gotten this far. I've gotten it. I can breathe. I can live. And if I can breathe and I can live, then I can be what I'm supposed to be. Now I don't have to carry that weight of that shame anymore. I don't have to carry that. I don't have to carry that with me anymore. It literally felt like I was closing that door behind me and stepping into something new. And I've been trying to play in my mind how we're going to play that off on the conference. And I've thought of a couple different ways. I don't know how we're going to get a door arch in the room. So I don't know if we're going to have to shuffle people out, shuffle them back in, or just have them create some type of vision board that they can flip one side to the other. I don't know. I'm just kind of tossing it around in my head.
I have in my head that we do it either during a transition or the end of a general session. And we work it in with that into our auditorium. And I know after the break, we're going to make a couple of announcements and tell kind of what's been happening with the conference. But I do have an idea on that. So we'll discuss that one. The other thing I wanted to tell you, do you know what the first chapter of my book is called?
I do not.
It is called You Were Designed to Breathe. And
that's wonderful.
You're saying, and it came about through, I was having a panic attack, and there was something inside of me innately that said, hold your breath. And so for whatever reason, I was like, okay, well, I'll hold my breath. It can't get worse in this moment. And I felt like I was about to die, and I was questioning whether or not I wanted to die. And so I started holding my breath, and I start counting, and then I gasped for air. And there was that voice inside of me that said, you were designed to breathe. And just like when you got away from your life purpose and it caused pain, when you took oxygen out of your lungs, it hurt you. And it was the foundation for the whole book.
Wow. That is amazing.
I love it.
I've had those same moments back even with my therapist years ago, and he would always point out to me, you're not breathing. It's so bad. Like, he's looking at me sitting in the office with him. He's like, when was the last time you took a deep breath?
Yes.
Take a deep breath right now. I need you to do, he would do like 4-corner breathing with me. This, like you look at the 4 corners of the desk and breathe. Someone else has to tell me to breathe. And once he brought it to my attention, I realized I hold my breath and I clench my fist. And that's how I go through the day.
Right.
I go through the day holding my breath and clenching my fist.
As
and I
soon as
really
we
need
get
to
back,
learn how to relax.
I get it. As soon as we get back, I'm going to tell you the anatomy behind what's happening when you're holding your breath. So we're going to go to break really quick, and then we're going to be back in about 3.5 minutes. I'm going to tell you what my research is on that.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Off-the-Cuff E-zine, an online magazine that is given out freely. The wide range of promotional is unlimited. We take pride in bringing it all together for you. And we recognize that it is hard to reach a lot of people by just having a website, or even those writers that do not have the means to advertise or have a website. This website will provide its free services of advertising and giving others a platform to share their experiences, skills, and ability. For we believe that it is through others we learn not only of others but of ourselves as well. So, if you need a chat room to hold sessions, we can provide that with audio and video for classes, workshops, or just single sessions. Contact us to see what we can provide with our special features and promotional experience. And it is all free. Yes, free. Join us and meet other like-minded people, because that is what makes OTC the place to be. E-zine.com.
Welcome back. All right, so I promised you, Ace said that I would tell you the anatomy of what's happening. So as I began to research more about panic attacks and what's happening in your body, so there's several things. The first thing is you get that I can't breathe kind of feeling for a lot of people. And then your brain, of course, is sending that alert to your body going, just breathe, breathe, breathe. So then I call it my Jedi mind trick. So when my intuition said to breathe, and I say when the Holy Spirit led me to breathe, I held my breath, and it put me back in control of my body's response. So then in my state of panic, instead of going, I can't breathe, I knew exactly why I couldn't breathe, and I was in control of it. So instead of having this moment of I can't breathe, I don't know why, something's wrong, in this state of panic in my brain, now I was fully in control of the state I was feeling. And so the longer you hold your breath, of course, the carbon monoxide is filling up in your lungs, and they begin to hurt. And then your diaphragm actually starts to spasm like an internal CPR. And it's telling, like it's trying to kick into gear that your lungs would take that breath of air. So as that's all happening, again, I'm still in control of it. So my brain is saying, breathe. And at that time when I was in the car and I had my emergency flashers going, and I felt like my brain was going with the flashers going, breathe, breathe, breathe. And I knew as soon as I took that breath, everything would be okay. And at the same time, I'm counting how long I'm holding my breath. And I get to about 32 seconds and I gasp for air. And I realize, as your heart's racing and I'm fighting to catch my breath, I realized I'm not having a panic attack anymore. And at the time, I didn't understand why it worked. I just knew that something inside of me had said I would be okay if I held my breath. And so it was so powerful that when God began to show me my purpose, people who struggle with anxiety or depression, I have found two things that most of us have in common. I don't like all and, always and never. I try to stay away, but I will say most people that I have worked with and I've coached that struggle with anxiety and depression have two things in common. They have either lost their sense of purpose, why they were put on this earth to make a difference. They've lost that or haven't found it, or they've lost their creative form of expression. And so I believe every person has a purpose, and I believe everybody has something in them that allows them to express that purpose. Some people it's art, some people it's music. For me, it's writing. For my son, it's in the gym. When he's in there and he's working out and he's benching more than he ever did, that's his way of expressing his strength. I had to learn to respect that because I didn't necessarily relate to it. But when those two things are missing, it causes pain in our life, just like when we take air out of our lungs, it causes that physical pain response. So.
That's really, really powerful stuff. And I absolutely agree with you on those pain points or those power points, whichever way you want to look at them. Because even with my struggle with anxiety and depression, and also having panic attacks almost on a daily basis, and ever since I was a child, all the way through, I want to say up until 2014. It was almost on a daily basis, every single morning between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. It was guaranteed to happen, and I did not know what was causing it. And it was not until a friend of mine in 2014, she just hit me up on Messenger one night. We started talking, and this is a friend of mine from childhood. She and I had gone to the same elementary school, so she's known me my whole life almost. Right. And she just out of the blue reached out to me on chat, and we started talking, and we started, just reminiscing about the past. And she acknowledged some of the things that I'd experienced as a child in school that caused me a lot of pain, and that I hadn't realized before that moment was the reason why every morning between the hours of 7 and 9, I would have a panic attack, because every morning between the hours of 7 and 9 for 7 years as a child, this was the most traumatic time of my life because I was going to school, going to a place that I didn't want to go. And she acknowledged
that root. You found the root.
Yeah. She found, I kid you not, I did not seek this from her. She just happened to land in my inbox and we started talking. And she said something that was so profound. She just said, and it was so simple but so profound, I saw what happened to you. And this is not something that anybody else had ever said. This is something that I just carried with me for years, just quietly wondering if it was just me. Wondering if it was my fault, wondering what did I do to deserve it? Why was I such a horrible person that I felt like this every single day? And she just said, plain and simple, I saw what happened. I know I was there. I saw what happened to you. You did not deserve that. And it was like, it just washed over me. Like she was, cleansed me of all of that. All of that stuff. And that's why, it's just, I've had so many people, just friends, strangers come into my life over the years and free me in that kind of sense. And ever since that day, I kid you not, ever since that day we had that conversation, she and I don't think we've had a conversation since, she and I, but I also haven't had a panic attack since.
I love that. I didn't sleep through the night until it was somewhere around August. I slept through the night for the first time since I was 9. And it took me getting that under control and going, oh yeah, I remember. And one of my friends that I grew up with, he was a precious friend of mine, got in touch with me and we hadn't talked in years. And he said, remember when you said you were going to write your story? I think it's time. And when I started writing, I just felt that release and getting back to that root of going, oh yeah, I remember where this went wrong. I remember where this became a pain point for me.
It's that catharsis, that being able to acknowledge the pain, because you can't acknowledge it if you can't identify it. And for some of us, we've been in that maze for so long. We've been in the fog for so long. We've been in the war for so long that we just don't know which way is up. And it takes having someone to come in, someone who knows us, someone who's seen us, someone who's willing to speak the truth to us in a loving way, to give us what we need to set ourselves free. And I think what you said earlier about, losing that creative form of expression, I like to say it's from what I've observed, from what I've observed from myself and what I've observed from other people, because I've also worked in social work for the last 10 years.
Right.
Almost 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, it's literally watching people who've had their light put out. That's the way I describe it.
Absolutely.
Watching a human being who's had their light put out. And so one of the things that I've learned about myself is that I have that gift of being able to see the good in people, despite everything that I've been through, despite the way that I was raised or the way that I was treated. Being able to see the good in everyone and everything. And sometimes it's a blessing and sometimes it's a curse. But being able to see it and being able to call it forth, because that was my healing, is having other people call it forth for me. See it in me on the days when I can't see it for myself, and be able to stand in the gap and hold that space for me and continue to speak it and continue to call it forth until I can see it myself. And so being able to give that gift back and being able to call it forth in others. And it's just one of the most wonderful things, being able to speak to someone, you meet them the first time and they're just so downtrodden and their light's gone and they're hopeless and they just don't believe that there's anything left in this world for them. And working with them for a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, 18 months, and watching them come back to life. And watching them rediscover that joy and rediscover that purpose and be able to step into themselves. And it's amazing what a little bit of love can do, how far a little bit of love will go.
Right. I agree. I completely agree. I want to turn our last 15 minutes to just to the conference and kind of since that's something we all have in common. And I promised our team on our She Rose page on our event that I would make a big announcement. So I want to catch everybody up a little bit with what's happened with the conference and everything that we're learning in the process. So for those who don't know, She Rose is new. It's Empowered to Speak is a relatively new organization, or at least on the scale that we're now doing it. And it is just expanding and growing, and people that are coming in alignment and meeting each other. And I love the network that's forming. But when the desire to do a conference came and people kept saying, okay, when are you going to speak? When are you going to, share your message? Then it all fell together when I reached out to Tiffany and I said, I think I want to do a conference. And within an hour, we had it planned. And so we had a venue booked at the Riley Center, which we've announced, but they came back and said that they were going to be closed for the Easter weekend. And so with that, we had to kind of scramble, and we decided that it was in the best interest to move the conference. They had another date on May 4th and May 5th. And so when they said that date, it all hit me on why our conference had to be that day. And it dates back to when I was 13. And my biological father had been removed from our home from CPS. And he was also the children's pastor at our church. And it was a relatively large church. And when news began to kind of make through the rumor mill like it does at every organization, church or school or whatever, then people began to be upset that he was the children's pastor. And so several people left the church. And I remember feeling almost a sense of gratitude because I felt like in a way they were standing up for me. And at the same time, I was very confused at 13 going, I don't understand what's happening, because I think even then I didn't understand the magnitude of what all had happened. So when he lost his position as a children's pastor, he got on his motorcycle, filled it with gas, and just started driving, and ended up in Nebraska. But he left our home on May 4th, and on May 5th committed suicide. And then we found out on May 6th. And I remember looking at my mom and saying, I will stand on a stage one day and tell the story so other people know how to make it through this. And it will be 25 years to the day that I said those words, that I will stand on the stage and tell the story publicly in full on the first time. And so it just aligned that I understood why the conference had to be that date. So one of our big announcements is that the conference will be moved to May 4th and 5th. We've been in touch with everybody who has registered and worked that out with them and worked with our speakers. So there's one of our announcements, and just a little bit kind of about my story. The second thing is we are making the final closing deal on a new venue, because the Riley Center came back and said that although they had moved it to May 4th and 5th, our mission to empower women was not quite aligned with their doctrine. And so they felt very strongly, and I want to make sure that I say this very cautiously because I don't want to judge their doctrine or school of thinking. I just kind of want to explain what happened, that they felt like it didn't align with their own counseling philosophy, and they have a counseling school there. And they believe very firmly that the Bible is the only source of help, and that promoting self-help books, things like that, doesn't align with their mission. And so without judgment, I'm just going to say that we are going to move our venue. And we are trying to finalize the deal on an amazing venue here in Burleson, which is right near Fort Worth, if you're listening and don't quite know where we are. But it's only about 15 miles away, but it really works out to to expand our conference if we sell more than 500 tickets. It's the first place we've looked. It opens up food options where we don't have to use a specific caterer. So there's some good things that we're looking at. I don't want to fully announce where until we have that signed contract. I'm learning some valuable lessons there. Don't jump the gun, and I can be a little bit hasty. So, but those are a couple of announcements that I wanted to make, and I'll let Tiffany, if you have anything to add on that. You've kind of been holding my hand, keeping me calm through this.
I think that, one, I'm super excited about the venue that we need to finalize on before we can announce to the world, because it's so amazing. Because it touches, I don't want to give it away. So I'm super
I lost you, babe.
And it's going to help us grow.
Tiffany.
Are you there?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. I got muffled. That's okay.
So I think we're going to be able to bring in a lot more people with all this going on. And I think that everything is always working out for us all the time. Yes. And that this thing has really taken off and grown in the last month. And that the universe and God and everybody's stars are aligning and doors are opening, and we're just having to roll with it. Absolutely. So with that said, just everybody listening, just to be patient and give us a few days to get some finalized contracts, and we will share the amazing news with everybody.
Absolutely.
But it's making it to where it's going to be even more amazing than it already was going to be. Absolutely. And we're going to be able to reach so many people.
Absolutely. And I love that positivity, and that you're absolutely right. I truly believe everything is lining up for a plan and a purpose. And I always say, when things change up automatically, you'll hear me yell out plot twist. And so we've had some plot twists, but in that, I will tell you, God has brought amazing people to line up beside us and to join with us in this conference. And some people that I'll be introducing along the way that just are making this possible, that I would have had no way of knowing had it not been for the conference. And a friend of a friend or somebody tags somebody, and then they contact me and say, hey, I want to help with this. And we've seen it align over and over, that I just couldn't be more thrilled. So, Asa, do you have anything?
I'm just enjoying the energy of this movement. I feel like every time I talk to you, Andi, I get goosebumps. I get excited. I'm just fired up and ready to go. I'm inspired. I'm also working on a couple things to get ready for the conference. So just hearing that the date got shifted was like, it was like another door. Like, oh, okay, I can breathe. And I can keep moving. It's just giving me more time to get ready. So I was.
I love it. I know every single person has said that. This actually works out better for me. Nobody has come to me. Actually, there was one person who had a wedding that weekend, but everybody else has been able to come and say, you know what, this actually works out better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the weather is going to be beautiful at that time. Absolutely. And so I'm really excited to continue this journey and to finally get to wherever this wonderful location is going to be. I just know it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to meet the other leaders, the other speakers, the other workshop leaders, and just to be able to share our stories and to be able to empower other women to do the same, and just touch some hearts and give that permission and validation, and
absolutely. There's two things that are going to be happening through now in the conference that will enable people to tell their stories. One, we're going to be inviting our guests, whether they're our speakers or even our conference attendees, will be invited to be guests here on Empowered to Speak. And then the second thing is we are working out the details, and we're going to start a Super Shero Award and where people will nominate a shero. We're going to be giving away some scholarships to the conference that's becoming available, and where I'll get to nominate somebody that I know has been through a lot and has a story to tell, and I just admire their strength and resiliency, and I get to help them attend a conference that they may not have financially been able to attend otherwise. And so to me, that's one of the most exciting things I get to announce tonight.
That sounds super exciting.
I agree.
That is super exciting. It's just great when we come out and we share our stories. You know, I feel like as women too, we've been taught to suffer in silence. We carry our burdens. We don't share. We just, keep a stiff upper lip and march through life and make it somehow. And then you find out, if you start sharing your story, that pretty much all of our stories are the same.
Right.
And we don't need to suffer alone or in silence.
It's empowering. Research. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off there, Asa.
No, it's okay.
I was doing some research, and I figured this out. When it comes to statistics of childhood abuse, we still use the statistics from 2009. And I was so blown away by that, that the statistic of 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused before 18 and 1 in 6 boys actually dates back to 2009. And before we started all of the push to help people speak out. And there are studies now that say it's as many as 1 in 2 young women or girls experience some form of abuse, mental, physical, or emotional, and 1 in 3 boys. It is so prominent and I get men that reach out to me every single day and say, hey, I know that your focus is women, but don't forget, us guys have been through it too. And I'm like, you are absolutely right. And don't worry, I'm coming for you. So
yep.
This will expand. It will. Yeah. Sheroes actually came about because of, I knew I had to start somewhere, and I knew I had to partner with some other people who had been through powerful things like I had. And in order to really impact the world in the way that I wanted basically a Shero Alliance. And the phrase itself came from Lisa Nichols, and she talks about being a Shero, and it resonated so much within me that I was like, yes, this is everything that I want it to be. It's powerful, it's feminine, it's, people often ask, am I a feminist? I try not to address that as a term itself. That's not what this is about. While I am all pro women's rights, obviously, this is about giving people a voice and telling a story. And I don't want that message misconstrued for what we're doing right now for Sheroes. This is about giving people a voice when they may or may not have ever had one. So,
absolutely. That's one of the biggest gifts. It's the most priceless gift that you can give someone, is giving them their voice back, giving them a voice sometimes, because, you just become paralyzed and trapped in the situation, or you just don't have the words, and it's hearing someone else put those feelings and put those situations into words for you and give you the words so that you can set yourself free.
Right. Absolutely. Tiffany, we're going to wrap up here over the next couple of minutes. What do you want to share? Both of you will be frequent flyers on the show, I know, regular contributors. So, but, for tonight, wrapping it up, is there anything that you want to share?
All besides that, I just want to share my light with the world.
And you do.
All. People don't have to be in the dark anymore, because it's lonely out there, and it's scary out there in the dark, and when you're lost, and I just want to be an advocate for hope. That's all. Every time I'm on this show, I just want to share my light and share joy and talk about the good and look for the good, because when you do that, everything starts to work out for you all the time.
Right. Absolutely. What about you, Asa? Any last words?
Last words.
For tonight.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate
Any good
that.
night words?
That's much better. I really believe in the power of words now. So I think,
absolutely. Okay.
I just want to wish everyone who's listening, I hope that you were able to pick up what we were putting down. The She Rose Women's Conference is going to be really powerful. If you can come out and support, buy a ticket, gift a ticket, that would be magnificent. You would be giving someone the power of setting themselves free. And I could go on forever talking about how wonderful that gift is. If you're out there and you're listening, know that you have the power. Power to set yourself free is within you. And
I love that. So in closing, how you're going to find us is the She Rose Women's Conference is a Facebook group as well as a Facebook event. In the morning, we will launch the Empowered to Speak Facebook group where you can start joining with us there. You can email me at empoweredtospeakout@gmail.com. Or you can find us at findmotivation.net/SheRose. Any of those ways are great ways to connect. I hope that you enjoyed Empowered to Speak. If you want to be a guest or contributor on our show, reach out to me. I'm Andi Cook, and this has been Empowered to Speak. Good night, everyone.
Good night.